Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope all of you are doing well, and today I had an idea for a different video of sorts. See, recently, a fellow HTCG YouTuber named Epic Underworlds started a card design contest for his upcoming game, Perpetual Cosmos, and I decided to enter a card here into that contest, and I thought in this video I'd talk about some of the things that influenced its design. And I think with this video, you'll get a little bit of insight into the design process I use when creating cards for not for my own card games that I make. And I wanted to start off with kind of where this whole card got started, and that's with the name, the Dreamweaver. See, kind of when I was initially thinking about entering the contest, one of the things that kind of stuck with my mind was like how in Epic's Perpetual Cosmos game it had like these themes of like dreamscapes and such, and I kept thinking of like the song Dreamweaver. For some reason, that song came to my mind, specifically the way the chorus opens up in that song, and that kind of led to the name. And I also, after kind of making this card, I did a little research afterward to find out like the song is by an artist named Gary Wright, which so I definitely learned a little something about that today, and I actually learned about kind of listened to the song itself a little more, which was actually about a train named the Dreamweaver, which doesn't really show in the card, but it does kind of carry over into other things. Kind of my mind when I was thinking about that name was thinking of a character who's kind of like this godlike being roaming the dreamscapes and trying to stitch together like the various thoughts people have and trying to make them into a reality. And that's kind of where, and originally my plan was to make this character into kind of a more human-like figurine, but then I also kind of thought of the act of like spiders weaving a web, and I kind of liked the idea of a spider coming in, just this tiny spider roaming the dreamscapes, knitting all these different worlds and making them reality. And that kind of was an idea that stuck with me, and that's what I ended up going with. But usually before the art comes out, I usually kind of go into the effect first when designing my cards. So I wanted to tie the effect into the concept of the name Dreamweaver as well, and so I came up with the idea of an effect that when you play the character, you get to look at the cards, and you look at the top 5 cards, and then you get to grab a creature from among them to put in your hand. And I could have made this say search for a creature, but since dreams are kind of random things, I know I can't really speak for everyone, but I know for me, like my dreams tend to be a little random. I decided to make it you look at the top 5 cards so you don't quite know exactly what you're getting. And that kind of played into the effect design because you're trying to bring these figments of imagination into reality, and that kind of plays into the effect here. It's a bit of a decent cost but low stats for it, but it makes up for it with a pretty strong effect. And then I want to get into the art, which I tend to save for last with my card games, the actual illustration, because I tend to like to use every part of the card to express something, whether it's the template or the effect itself or even the illustration. They all express kind of related things about the whole picture here. And so the idea of the spider, I also, coming back to it, was also partially inspired by the Charlotte from Charlotte's Web, specifically the animated film by Hanna-Barbera. So I kind of looked up some images of that character and kind of took it in, had some influence in the design of this character here. And as you can see, she's kind of knitting this dream together with a little sewing needle. I know that's kind of not how spiders make webs, but it is kind of a dream world, so they can kind of do what they want. And then there's kind of this illustration down here. So it gives you a little glimpse of the dream that's being constructed, and this dream here is actually kind of inspired by a real dream I had one time where I was at a hotel with my family, and weirdly the hotel had a strange construction to it where it had this big suspension bridge that was a little rickety, and it was like in the middle of this big bottomless pit that was floating in the sky. And then to get to our room, strangely, we had to cross it, and it was kind of scaring me a little bit. And so I kind of wanted to bring some of that into the design as well. And also I played with the template a little bit, because usually the name bubble and the bubbles for the different stats of the card are usually just plain circles, but I decided to kind of play with the template here and make them in like thought bubbles, just to kind of buy into that idea of a dreamscape just a little bit more. And even like the background of of this card, I use a lot of purples and pinks, which, if you're a Pokemon fan, kind of brings to mind the color scheme of Muna and Musharna from Pokemon Black and White, and so I kind of brought that into the design as well. And kind of also was partially inspired, though not quite as much, was the Magic the Gathering card Timna the Weaver. Though it didn't play a huge role, looking at the card, it does have a spider's web in the background of the card art itself. If I remember, I'll possibly show it on screen so you can see for yourself. And that's kind of all that was going into the card, but I also kind of wasn't sure what kind of rarity to make this card. If you're not familiar with Epic's game Perpetual Cosmos, the rarity system plays into directly into how many cards you could have into your deck. So a common card allows you to have 3 copies of it. Uncommon cards allow you to have 2 copies, rare cards for 1, and then there's dream rares, which you're only allowed 1 dream rare of any variety in your deck. And so I thought of making this a dream rare version as well. Though I'd probably make the cost a little bigger and change the effect a little bit, but I might consider making a dream rare version of this as another submission, because as per the rules of this contest, we are allowed to submit multiple entries. So I might do that in the future. But until then, that pretty much sums up kind of what went into this card. Thank you very much for watching, and if you want to learn a little more about Epic's contest, I will provide a link to his video about it in the description below. And definitely comment below if you want to see more videos about game design like this in the future, where I kind of go into kind of my thought process on making certain cards. And I'll definitely consider your suggestions. I always try to read the comments when I can. And until then, I will see you in whatever video I upload next, and take care.